WWE fans, what happened on Monday Night Raw was the kind of segment that instantly gets people talking. What started as a simple confrontation between two of WWE's most talked-about young stars quickly turned into a powerful moment of pride, confidence, and competition. Oba Femi and Bron Breakker have been moving closer and closer to a collision, and this latest encounter made it clear that neither man is interested in stepping aside. There was no need for an all-out fight or an over-the-top physical confrontation. Instead, the tension came from the words, the expressions, and the uncomfortable silence that followed. Bron Breakker entered the ring, determined to make his point, believing that he deserved to be recognized as one of the biggest future stars in WWE. Femi, however, seemed completely comfortable with the pressure. He did not appear intimidated, and he certainly did not seem interested in giving Breakker the answer he wanted. That confidence made the entire exchange feel bigger than an ordinary Raw segment. For fans watching at home, it quickly became obvious that this was about more than a single argument. It was about two young wrestlers trying to establish who belongs at the very top of WWE in the years ahead. By the end of the segment, the question was no longer whether these two would eventually meet. The question was simply how much bigger this rivalry could become before they finally stepped into the ring together. The moment that changed everything. To understand why this confrontation carried so much weight, it is important to look at what Oba Femi has accomplished recently. Femi has been presented as a rising powerhouse with enormous potential, and his victory over Brock Lesnar at SummerSlam elevated his profile to another level. Coming out of such a major match, Femi suddenly had an entirely different reputation. He was no longer simply another promising young superstar waiting for his opportunity. He had proven that he could perform under enormous pressure and stand across from one of WWE's most established names. The significance of that victory became even greater when Lesnar later announced his retirement, making Femi's accomplishment feel like the beginning of a new chapter. Naturally, that kind of momentum attracts attention from other stars. Bron Breakker has spent considerable time establishing himself as one of WWE's most explosive and competitive young talents, and he has his own reasons for believing that he should be part of the company's future. From Breakker's perspective, seeing another rising star receive so much attention creates an obvious challenge. This is not necessarily about jealousy, it is about ambition. Breakker wants to prove that his path is just as important, while Femi appears determined to show that his recent success is only the beginning. That difference in attitude has turned their interactions into something fans cannot ignore. Bron Breakker demands an answer. When Breakker stepped into the ring, he was clearly looking for answers. He wanted Femi to explain exactly why he believed he deserved to be called the future of WWE. Breakker's challenge was direct, confident, and filled with the kind of competitive energy that has become a major part of his character. He was not interested in vague statements or polite compliments. He wanted to know who truly deserved to stand at the front of the next generation. Instead of immediately getting the response he expected, however, Paul Heyman appeared. Heyman has always been someone who understands how to control the atmosphere of a WWE segment, and his appearance immediately changed the dynamic. Rather than giving Breakker the simple answer he wanted, Heyman turned the question back toward him. Who really is the future of WWE? Suddenly, Breakker was not controlling the conversation anymore. He was being forced to listen and wait for the answer. That small change made the situation even more interesting because it allowed the tension to build naturally. Breakker clearly wanted recognition, while Heyman seemed more interested in watching the situation develop. Then the arena erupted when Oba Femi's music played. Femi walked toward the ring with an unmistakable sense of confidence. He did not need to rush or prove anything physically. His presence alone was enough to make the confrontation feel important. Oba Femi delivers a cold response. Once Femi had the microphone, he delivered the line that completely shifted the mood of the segment. Looking directly at Breakker, Femi essentially told him that the question was unnecessary because the answer was already obvious. In Femi's mind, he is the future of WWE. There was no hesitation, no uncertainty, and no attempt to make the statement sound smaller than it was. That confidence was what made the exchange so effective. Breakker had walked into the ring expecting to put Femi under pressure, but Femi turned the situation around by refusing to accept the premise of Breakker's argument. Instead of debating whether he belongs among WWE's future stars, Femi acted as though the discussion had already been settled. For Breakker, that had to be frustrating. His entire purpose was to demand respect, yet Femi responded as though the challenge itself was beneath him. The tension became visible without either man needing to take things too far physically. Breakker's expression said enough. He looked like someone who had heard exactly the answer he did not want to hear. Femi, meanwhile, remained composed. That contrast between Breakker's frustration and Femi's calm confidence created one of the strongest parts of the segment. It also established something important about their potential rivalry. These two do not simply disagree about who is better. They appear to have completely different ideas about how they should be viewed by WWE fans. The handshake that got everyone talking. The final moments added another fascinating layer to the situation. After announcing the match, Heyman shook Breakker's hand and then extended the same gesture toward Femi. Femi accepted it, creating a visual that immediately invited speculation about what Heyman's role could be moving forward. A handshake in professional wrestling can mean many things. Sometimes it represents respect. Sometimes it is simply business. And sometimes it leaves fans wondering whether there is a larger plan happening behind the scenes. For Breakker, watching Heyman share that moment with Femi was certainly not insignificant. Heyman has been closely connected to Breakker's story, which makes his interaction with Femi particularly interesting. It does not automatically mean that alliances are changing, but it does create questions about where everyone stands. That uncertainty could become an important part of the story as the September 6 match approaches. The beauty of the moment was that nobody needed to explain it. The visual spoke for itself. Breakker stood between two men who appeared completely comfortable with the situation, while he was left to process everything that had just happened. In one segment, the balance of the conversation had shifted dramatically. Femi looked confident, Heyman looked calculated, and Breakker looked determined to prove that he had been underestimated. September 6 could set the tone for the future. Now the focus turns toward Atlanta, where Oba Femi and Bron Breakker will finally have the opportunity to settle their differences inside the ring. This match has the potential to be much more than another contest on the card. It represents a clash between two wrestlers who believe they belong in WWE's next generation of main event stars. Femi has momentum, confidence, and the credibility that comes from defeating one of the biggest names of the modern era. Breakker brings his own reputation, athletic ability, intensity, and a determination to prove that nobody should overlook him. Neither man has much reason to back down. That is why the build-up should be so interesting. Every interview, every stare-down, and every exchange between now and September 6 can add another layer to the rivalry. The biggest question is no longer simply who is the future of WWE. The bigger question is which man will take the next major step toward becoming one of its present-day headliners. One thing is certain, the conversation has changed. Oba Femi has made it clear that he believes his future is already here, while Bron Breakker has every reason to believe that he can change that narrative. When they finally meet in Atlanta, the words will matter less. The performance will matter more. And after everything that happened on Raw, fans have plenty of reasons to be watching.